Hi, I'm Paul Matthews from Hedges and Hurdles, Country Skills and Crafts. This video is made up of 8 parts. In part 1, I will explain what a wattle hurdle is, its history and how it's used today. Their primary use, many years ago, was to pen sheep. You would have them, maybe 10 or a dozen, take them. If you're penning your sheep at a show, shearing probably, they may have used them. They were replaced eventually by aluminium gate hurdles, I guess you could call them. These made the hazel hurdle become a little bit obsolete and not have any use. So modern day, their primary use is for garden screens. And they can be woven, in fact, into arches, again, for use in gardens, weddings, that sort of thing. You can use wattle hurdles or a continuous weave hurdle to stabilise riverbanks. These are generally made from willow because once they grow, the root system stabilises the soil, and you may see these from time to time. It's a natural remedy, if you like, for to stop soil erosion. In part 2, I'm going to show you examples of the tools that you will need to produce a wattle hurdle. First tool really, and probably the most important, is a spar hook. This is like a mini bill hook. There's a clue in the name, spar hook, because thatchers used to make them to split their hazel, to make their spars. It's the best tool for the job. There are different methods of splitting, but this was how I was shown many years ago. I find it the best way. Moving on from that, we've got this is a side axe. Now a side axe has a single bevel on one side. This is left-handed. You can get right-handed ones too. This has an offset head, if you can see that, to one side of the handle. If it was right-handed, it would be this side. Side axes give you a lovely flat surface when you're cutting, so they're ideal for pointing up your uprights. When you're trimming the ends, when you twist the rods, just a pair of secateurs will easily nip those off. That's absolutely fine. Don't have to be expensive, as long as they're sharp. And for something a bit heavier, if you've got some thick sections, I'll just use a pair of loppers. And again, as long as they're sharp, doesn't matter who makes them. Lastly, one of my favourite tools is this little wooden beadle, and that's what you use to drive the uprights in the mould. It only weighs about 3 pounds, same as the axe does actually, and that's plenty heavy enough. You don't need a long handle, you could have it even shorter. Okay, so now you have everything you need. And in part 3, I'm going to show you how to create your mould used for the production of the hurdle. In front of me here is the mould that you'll need to make your wattle hurdle. The holes, if you take a look, are drilled out on a curve. This is to retain tension as you're weaving. There are 9 uprights, and these holes are drilled out at 70 inches, which allows for half the diameter of the stake one end, half the diameter of the stake the other end, and the twists on the hazel. In part 4, we are going to select the materials for the uprights, traditionally called zails, and learn how to cleave the wood. So cleaving the rods is very tricky. I use a spar hook, which is a miniature bill hook, I guess you could call it that. Thatchers use them, hence the name spar hook. It's sharp, but you're not using the sharp edge to split the wood. You're using it as a wedge once you get the blade into the centre. Now hazel has a pith down the bottom, through the centre, like a pencil, and that's what you try and follow, or you want it to be either side when you split the wood. It doesn't always happen, and from a diameter point of view, if it's about the diameter of your finger, I tend to leave it in the round. The butt end of this is probably 1.5 inches, so, and it's about 14 feet long, so there should be plenty of material. Right, so I'm going to go in. That's all you need. A little nick, stress it, tension it a bit over your knee, thigh, and open it up with the blade. Place the blade in. Do not push the blade through the wood, you will cut your knuckle. It's guaranteed. Okay, so I'm just using it as a wedge, moving it left and right. Not too much pressure, otherwise it will pop out the side. This left-right action keeps it pretty central. It's quite a nice sound too. When it gets past halfway, you get a bit of a wobble, so I tend to place that on the floor, then it's stable. So you make the split, move the hook. Make the split, move the hook. Once you've driven the uprights into the mould, it's important to remember that you have bark one side and the whitewood on the other side. This is for weaving purposes, tension really, and it just helps the thing go a bit smoother when you're weaving. There's various methods of doing this. You can actually have 4 facing white side, 3 with the bark, or as you can see here, I've done 4 with the bark side to the front and 3 white. We've cut the uprights down to our selected height, which in this case is 37 inches, so it's going to be a 3-foot panel, so you'll have 1 inch above the top weave. Okay, and that's just a little marker stick, very handy thing to have. 37 inches, then you cut them off. In part 5 we will be weaving the bottom of the hurdle. This is the most complex part of the exercise. When you're weaving the bottom of the hurdle, you have 6 individual rods and you're creating an X, as you can see there, and the next one along we've got a V. And this is probably the easiest way to describe it. So when you're putting in your next rod, you go under the V, only under the 2 rods. Then you're coming back through over the top of the X. The nearest rod to you goes out to the front and you create another X and another V. This is the beginning of the weave of the hurdle. You have to that end in a V and the lowest 2, the opposite end, in a V. These will be your straps that secure the bottom of the weave. The 4 rods out of the front, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how they go in. So the closest one first, then number 2, then number 3, then number 4. 2 of them are twisted and run back through, and the last 2 just go to the end and are snipped off. That's the first one to the end, twisted, which I'll show you again, and then back through to the 3rd one in, right? And we're taking the next one. You hear the fibres pop on the hazel. 3 or 4 twists is enough. So we're going back through. So you have 2 twists on the end. This is how the bottom weave should look with the 2 remaining rods. This is the back side of the hurdle where I am now. So it's the back strap first, as I call them, which goes through. The twisting. Try and rotate your hands going forward. Then you'll break the fibres. There's more leverage going forwards than backwards. Snip that off there. And then the front one, I have to come round to the front from the twisting point of view. It's a little bit thin, which is quite hard to grip. this is how your weave should look. It's tied in on one end only, and as you can see, it's built up to one end, which is about 5 or 6 inches from the block, the mould. The other end is left open until it's built up to the same height, and then you tie the straps in. So we're going to tie in what was the open end with the 2 straps, so it looks identical to the opposite end. So it's the back one first. I'm on the back side of the panel, the white side if you want to call it that. Through. Try not to snap it off like I almost did there. Twist your hands forward. Far more leverage. That'll go to there. Snip him off. Front one. Through to the back. I go around the other side when I do this to twist it. A bit of tension in the wood. And twist your hands forward. Three twists once you've broken the fibres is normally sufficient. This is really green, this wood, so it's they always splinter a bit, and also the bark peels on these, but you just snip them off with your secateurs. I do it as I go. You can leave it till you're done. And if we take a look at it from this side, pretty identical either end. In part 6, you will begin by cleaving more rods to continue weaving the entire hurdle. Just compressing it all down to make sure it's nice and tight. That's the little wooden beetle. Got enough to come back with this. So the twisting of the horizontal weave is putting a bit of tension in the wood. The bark starts to crease against the upright, and you simply twist your hands forward. Keep them about shoulder width apart. Twist your hands forward, bang. There's your twist. Hold it, don't let it go. There you go. In part 7, once a certain height has been obtained, we will look at the build-up stage of the weave. We will weave the top of the panel in a traditional fashion to complete the hurdle. So we've reached a level with the weave where we need to build up the hurdle to one side. It looks very odd when you do this, but that is so you have enough room, so when you weave the top, the very top, the rods extend past the end upright, you twist them and come back, and then that builds up this end. So it'll be built up to that side from this upright here, which is one past the centre, from right to left. So now we've reached the build-up stage, we're building it up to one corner, which looks very odd, but this is how it's traditionally done. So that's stepped up, as you'll see in a few minutes. And then we'll go back to there. So we're working from left to right. You'll notice here that 2 of the rods run the same way, but you can't really odds that, and it's not a problem when you're weaving. Nice twist on the end, then round to there. And if you take a look at the front, you can see it's already started to step up. So this will probably be the last one on the build-up stage. And what you really have to take a look at is the size of the rod you're using. you don't want it to go right to the top because you want about an inch left, because you're going to do a strap in a minute. So this will be the last section that I put in, I think, with this twist, and then we'll probably be at a height where when we put the strap in, we call it there. I'll have a look at that, and I'm happy with that. So we'll clip these off on the front so they're nice and flat. Something else to remember is I try and keep all my ends that you cut on the back side of it, because this is the face side. The bark side is generally recognised as the face side, and you've got to keep these cuts nice and flat on the front so you don't catch your hands on them or your clothes. So I've selected a particular rod to do what I call the tie-in on the top. The better the rod is, the better the strap will look. You don't want something that's got a lot of kinks in it. This one's got one about 10 feet up, but that won't be important because it's initially the first foot of it. That has to be nice and straight. So we'll do that now. So we split the rod, and you pick the longest section. Well, I pick the longest section when I do this. Put a bit of a point on it with your spar hook, and that'll just help it go through the front of the panel. It looks very odd again what we're doing here, so you find a decent gap. There's pretty good. So we're going in and then around the back of the end. Give it a twist. And you very gently roll it round. I've twisted it, but all I've done is crush the fibres in the wood, so it sits nice and flat against the upright, and then just weave it in. So now we have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rods to put in, 5 sections of split rods. The last one is in the round, and that's generally a small diameter. So you're going under here, make sure it reaches the end, and then round, and then all the way to the end. And then I'm going to twist it and come back and start to lift this up. So I'm moving along from right to left. We've done the end. The end is done. So each split section you put in goes under the top 2 rods. So you've got one behind, one in front. It goes underneath. Make sure it goes past the upright. Just an inch is fine. And then weave her in. So next one in, under the top 2 with a point, get it behind the upright. There's a bit of guesswork here with the height. It's not too bad actually. I'll leave that as it is at the moment in case I do need it. Each section you put in when you go round the upright holds the previous one down. And that's so you can't lift them off. This is the last rod to finish off the hurdle. It's in the round, as we say, so be a bit selective about what size you use. Remembering that you're going to go in at the centre, weave to the end, double twist on the end here, and then come back and tuck it in. You break the fibres in the hazel. You can just see it on the outside there, how it's gone. So we go round, keep the twist in it. Don't worry about the little shards coming off, because you're going to trim them off afterwards. Right, so at this point, have a look at it. It's a little bit high, but that will go down. I'm just going to clean this up. So I'm just going to tap this double twist down. It's a little bit higher, so, and that's absolutely fine there. So there's a little cheat here when you tuck this in. Well, I think it's a bit of a cheat, but it will make your job a lot easier to finish it. And that is, it's going to go behind this upright, so you've got to tuck it in under the top two again. Cut it off so you've got enough to go past the upright. And if you want to tuck it in, it's quite difficult, so the easiest thing to do is to actually take it off, tuck the end in, and we're in. And then lift it over. And there's your wattle hurdle. And in part 8, we will remove the hurdle from the mould, ready for use. To get your hurdle out of the mould is not difficult. All you have to do is lay it flat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit either end, either with the beadle, or if it's really stuck, I'll use the back of the axe, but I tend not to. So make sure your leg's out the way. Give it a hit. Go to the other end. One more this end. And there we are. Just to quickly mention the strength of these, you can walk on them to straighten it because it is in a curve, and just flex it, and then generally we'll have a look along the top when I've gone back again. But this is how strong they are. I'm about 80 kilos, I guess. So right, let's have a look, and that's pretty good. When you're making these, if you're making a few, you need to lay them flat with something heavy on to keep them straight as they dry out. So we're moving on to aftercare after you've made your hurdle, how to treat it and keep it looking good. In the winter, it's best to use a preservative, and in the summer, if it gets really hot, you should use a boiled linseed oil. If you're growing plants over it, that's quite difficult. Boiled linseed oil and plants do not go together. Thank you for watching this tutorial. If you have any queries, please feel free to contact us. And if you do post your hurdle on social media, please remember to tag us.